The Full-Time Review is supported by and brought to you by Saltire Energy, the global market leader in specialist drilling equipment rental. And also by Craig International, a truly global company with 10 offices strategically placed around the world. The future of global procurement is right here. Aberdeen played their first Scottish Cup tie at Bonnyrigg in over 2 years in what was Neil Warnock's first game in charge in the home dugout. It was the first meeting between the two sides and the Dons prevailed by 2-0. Hi everybody, how are you doing? A very warm welcome to this live edition of the Full-Time Review here on ABTV on YouTube. I hope you're having a good weekend so far. So this show is all about looking back on yesterday's victory against Bonnyrigg Rose and also reacting to the draw. So if you want to have your say and you want your comments read out tonight, all you have to do if you are a normal watcher is just leave your comments below the video and I'll do my very best to read them out. So there's only really one place to start, and that's with the quarter-final draw. So we were drawn at home against Kilmarnock. Hibs take on Rangers at Easter Road. These games will be played on the weekend of the 9th and the 10th of March. Celtic take on Livingston. And Morton, who upset Motherwell on Friday, they play host to Hearts, who had a comfortable afternoon's work today against Airdrieonians. So, Kilmarnock at home. I have to be honest, I'm very happy with that draw. It could have been a lot worse. Obviously, Derek McInnes is doing well with Killie at the moment. But look, I'll absolutely take it. And we will have to be at our best to try and make the semi-finals. But I think it's a very favourable draw. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of the housekeeping first, do all the little bits and pieces that I normally do on the show, and then just concentrate on your thoughts and your comments. Because there was a bit of a mixed review about yesterday's performance. Everyone was delighted with the result. Everybody has basically said it was all about just winning the game and getting through to the quarterfinals. But many of you were really concerned about the performance on the pitch. So let's go through some of the housekeeping. First and foremost, Neil made a host of changes, which I thought was really interesting. He made 5 changes in total. So Ross Doohan came in for Kelly Roos for his first start. Angus MacDonald came in for Stefan Gartenmann. Shayden Morris came in for Jamie McGrath. Dante Palvara came in for Connor Barron. And Duke came in for Johnny Hayes. In the end, it ended up almost like a 4-4-2. So I thought it was a very bold move to make those changes. It obviously paid off. This is what Neil had to say after the game. If we play like we did today, we'll probably get knocked out in the next round. I wasn't overly enamoured by our performance, but we did get through, and I hope whoever we get in the next round will give them a good game. I think we can improve. There's ability within the camp, and we need to get our teeth into the league right now. So I have to be honest, I am finding his post-match interviews, the one, I know he's only given a couple, but I thought yesterday's post-match was extremely refreshing, totally upfront, totally transparent, and totally honest. And I really liked that about Neil. Hang on a second, I am just dragging in a couple of things that I want to do. And what I really liked about what he said was that he was very honest about the performances of some of the players. And he said he's going to have to address it during training this week. And that he was disappointed with the performances of some of his substitutes. I found that totally refreshing. And I have to be honest, I want to hear our manager being that honest and that transparent. Because, look, for me, it was all about getting through, but I have to be honest, I was disappointed with the performance, particularly in the second half. I just felt we were very pedestrian and very flat. And I think that shows up in the match stats. So let's have a look at the match stats, because it does make for quite interesting reading. So look at that, Bonnyrigg Rose, look at the possession. They enjoyed 53% of possession to our 47%. They equalled our shots, 8-8, but they got more on target. They're 5 to our 4. They committed 10 fouls in the game to our 7. They won 5 corners to our 4. Now, I know a lot of you will say match stats don't matter. It's the result at the end of the day. Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. But if we do have any ambitions of climbing the league and progressing in the Scottish Cup, performances on the park will have to improve, and have to improve, I think, a lot. But what I will say is absolute fair play to Bonnyrigg, because I thought they were excellent yesterday, and on another day, they could have snatched something. Nicky Devlin had to clear off the line when it was 1-0. Thank goodness for Bojan Majowski. I looked at his stats today. 78 games played for the club, 40 goals now scored. He's got 22 for the season. And honestly, where would we be without him? There were so many comments on Twitter X today about where would we be this season without Bojan Majowski. Again, just another superlative performance, and it's just adding to the value of what will be his price tag. And I thought he took his goals extremely well yesterday. Second one, okay, takes a slight deflection, but the fact, that he's willing to take it on the volley straight away just goes to show his alertness and his willingness to just have a pop anytime. So look, job done, absolutely delighted. Kilmarnock next, and we'll all absolutely take it. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up to you so that you can have your say. And, there's no time limit on tonight's show, so we can just go through it as we see fit. Right, let me go. Oh, there's lots and lots of comments coming already, which is great. Right, Gordon Keith Ritchie came on first of all. Hi, Gordon. Job done. Good first half, poor second half. But it's all about getting into the next round and a home draw next and go into Wednesday's game with a win. Come on, you Reds. Fraser Gunn. Hi, Fraser. Most important thing was to get the win. Clean sheet, a positive. Bojan on fire. Like the fact the gaffer called out some players afterwards. They need to know the standards. I completely agree. Just a little note on Ross Doohan, who obviously came in for his first start. Didn't have a great deal to do, but when called upon, I thought he looked very assured. And I'm not sure he'll get a start against Motherwell on Wednesday, but I'd like to think that it's given Neil a real selection headache. And again, the only way he's going to improve and the only way he's going to get better as a Premiership goalkeeper is he's got to play against Premiership clubs. So I'd like to think that Neil might just retain his place between the sticks. I thought he did really well yesterday. Well done, mate. Paul Donaldson. Hi, Ali, and to all dandies. Decent first half hour yesterday, but we seem to take our foot off the gas a bit. Bonnyrigg had a few good chances and might and would have deserved a goal. Fraser Gunn came back to say, also interesting how impressed Neil is with Bojan. He is bigging him up. Could add a few quid to his value if any English clubs are looking to do business. And of course, he's well respected down south, as in Neil Warnock is. Paul Donaldson went on to say, fair play to the Bonnyrigg players and also to their supporters who turned out in big numbers and were a credit to their club. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Kaiser 1903 is here. Hi, Kaiser. How you doing? Good cup draw for us. Hope Warnock's got the players sorted out by then. I think he will. Alan Nicol, yes, we won, but we should really be putting on a better display than that. Again, credit to Bonnyrigg and their fans. Paul came back to say, please, we got a home draw and managed to avoid the 2 from Glasgow in the quarterfinals. But Kilmarnock have been our bogey team this season and we need to put that right. Stuart Wilson has said, like the fact that Neil Warnock has identified areas of the team that need improvement. The team will grow stronger under him and hopefully get top 6 and build from there. So, look, I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to play any skullduggery. But I think it was obvious who got pass marks yesterday and who did not get pass marks. And I can't help but think that those players that did not get pass marks, again, with the greatest respect to a League 2 part-time player, you need to take a long, hard look at yourself. Because there were 1 or 2 individual performances yesterday that were just not up to Aberdeen Football Club standards. And it was extremely disappointing if you're given your opportunity, particularly now under somebody like Neil Warnock, you've got to take your chance. You really do. And I think one or two let themselves down yesterday. Fraser Gunn came back to say, bearing in mind I live in Bonnyrigg, I so needed us to get the win. Could not have faced it here if we failed to win. Brilliant. Bob Duff. Hi, Bob. How you doing? Poor stuff yesterday, despite the victory. Warnock will need a few good weeks to get his methods across. Simon Roy. Good evening, Ali and fellow dandies. Glad we won. I think I like Mr. Warnock. No mobile phones. He wants him to communicate, which I respect, but interested to see which players he needs to improve. Yeah, so if you missed that, he basically banned mobile phones from the dressing rooms, because what he wants is the players to communicate with each other and to have fun together and to build relations together, like how it used to be. I like that a lot. Old school. Bob Duff came by to say, see if VAR was in operation yesterday, I reckon Morris would have been found to be offside at the first goal. Rod Cow has said, great to progress to the next round, although the second half was very flat when the Dons looked like they could have pushed on and scored more. Suze said, looking like Neil knows where we need improvement. Heard he's banned phones from the dressing room. Blinking right, she says. Bob Duff came back to said, I like the cut of Warno's jib. He's clearly not impressed with certain players. The subs for a start. Rod Cow came back to say, refreshingly honest from Warnock after the match when he said if we play like that in the next round, we'll get knocked out. He's absolutely right. Charles Craig. Hi, Charles. I'm concerned with the depth of the squad. Manager giving opportunities to a few players, but not seeing a player capable of coming off the bench to change a game. John Grant said, I thought we did enough and got the job done, but I really fear when Bojan leaves. Keeper looked okay, but would like to see more of him. Absolutely. Simon Roy said, it would be superb to win the cup for us and Neil Warnock. John Grant said, home tie against Killie is a great draw for us. Gareth Mackey has said, not a bad draw, but as usual, the old firm kept apart and no doubt kept apart in the semi. Love how Warnock has banned players from using mobile phones. Who was the standout player for you, Ali, if any? Oh, you put me on the spot there. I thought Jack McKenzie played really well. I think he's come on absolute bundles. I really do. And I think he's come on bundles since getting sent off against Hibs in the League Cup semi-final. I really think he's improved massively since then. Bojan, obviously, for me, the only thing I didn't like yesterday, I was starting to get a bit frustrated, was the long ball again. We sort of went back to this long ball, missing out the midfield and trying to get over the top of their defence, and it was becoming quite irritating after a while. I hope you agree. Baz Strachan has said, good evening, everyone. On to the quarterfinals we go with a tough game, but at home, so we've got a great chance. Tough 2 weeks with 2 wins ahead is a must. Bob Duff said, we simply should not be getting negative possession stats in a home game via a League 2 side. I completely agree. That's why I flagged it up, Bob. Gavin Wilson followed Bonnyrigg 13 years when I lived there, but never in doubt that I supported the Dons, having followed them since the late 60s. So loved this game. Miofsky is a legend. Couple of points on Bob Duff again. Huge home doubleheader coming up. 6 points needed against Motherwell and Hibs on Wednesday and Saturday, of course. Bob Duff said Duhan did fine. Should defo start in midweek. Yeah, I agree. Keep him in. Why not? Baz Strachan has said, would have loved to have seen Vinny get a run out for Warnock if he was still at the club. Can see some width and his pace could help us in the front end of the pitch. Morris was poor. Bob came back to say, I don't think Neil Warnock is the type of manager to allow the opposition to dominate the ball. Not in his DNA, but does have the midfielders to allow him to impose his style of play. I don't quite know how to pronounce this, but I hope I get this right. Aofan. Oh, I don't know, and I'm terribly sorry if I've not pronounced it correctly. Warnock has got a ton of work to do. We look bereft of ideas when we have the ball. I'd push McGrath onto the right wing and play Clarkson in the middle, Duke on the left. He went on to say, there is a team in there somewhere. Absolutely, mate. You're absolutely spot on. Jack came on to say hello, and do you like the appointment of Neil Warnock? So I've got to admit, I was a little bit unsure to start with. I felt it was a little bit of a PR stunt for both the football club and for him. But I've absolutely come round to him. And I think he could be great for us. I really do. I found, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I found his post-match interviews particularly very interesting and very refreshing. And if he can walk the walk while talking the talk, then I think he could be absolutely great for us. He's got a couple of more days now on the training field ahead of the Motherwell game. So I really hope he sticks to his word about sorting out these players that he felt didn't quite hit the mark against Bonnyrigg yesterday. Fraser Gunn he's put out a general question to most of you. Would you guys try to keep Gartenmann? What's the consensus? So I'll give you my own opinion on this. So it's my understanding that the club are keen to keep him and want to start negotiations with him and his parent club. I think there is a very good defender in there. I thought he played well against Rangers. But I also think that he's lost his form since signing for the club. In the past few weeks, I think he's been very guilty of some really bad errors, giving the ball away cheaply, and putting us in very much dangerous positions by just not being aware of what's going on around him. If he can rediscover that form that he had when he first joined us, then I'm actually all for keeping him. But I just want him to rediscover that form. Because of late, and I've said it here before, I think he's been quite poor. Paul Donaldson said, interesting choice to let Dante Polvaro be captain in the second half. And the story about how he got it was quite funny, but a bit random too. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether he was just having a bit of fun with Rob McLean in his post-match interview. I don't know. I just can't see somebody of Neil Warnock's experience just randomly handing out the captain's armband to a random player and saying, well, just because you're the closest sat to me, you can be the captain. Can you? I just can't see it. But I've got to be honest, I had absolutely no issues with him being captain. I thought Nicky Devlin would get it ahead of him, but I had no issues with it. It'll help him. It'll help him grow as a player and as a person. So why not? Bob Duff came back to say the defenders were forced to go long as the midfielders were incapable of finding the forward players. Yeah, it's a good point. Scott Bowie said, Gartenmann is not for me. Is he better than McDonald? I'm not sure he is. Bob Duffer said, I'd be okay to let Gartenmann depart. Simon Roy came back to say, Neil Warnock is a breath of fresh air, and it's good to be back to old school to sort out the squad. Okay, so that's most of the comments that have come in so far. There is something else I wanted to do today. So, on this day in the club's history, on the 11th of February. So if we go back to 1946, former Aberdeen manager Ian Porterfield was born. He was in charge of the Dons for 90 games, winning 44, drawing 33, and losing only 13 games. He sadly died in September 2007. On this day in 1970, at this time, Martin Buchan became the youngest captain in the club's history when he led the side to a 2-1 win against Clydebank in the Scottish Cup. He was 20 years old. Interesting story about that Clydebank game. They were only part-timers, and there was an issue with the strips. So Clydebank, if I remember correctly, played in red and white, and the referee needed us to change shirts or change strips, and I think, if my memory serves me correct, we ended up playing in vertical stripes, I think. And we only just got through that game. And apparently Aberdeen got jeered off the pitch at the end. Ian Porterfield. So obviously he came in. It was an impossible job for him to take over from Sir Alex Ferguson. The appointment came right out of left field. I remember it well. I don't think anybody was expecting that appointment. He came in with a gentleman called Jimmy Mullen, who was his assistant, who was a really, really nice guy. He was always going to be on a hiding to nothing. But when you look at those stats, to only lose 13 games out of the 90 just goes to show that he actually did a really good job. Got us to a League Cup final, which we lost on penalty to Rangers. But in the end, he was on a hiding to nothing. But I think, the brand of football that he played was okay. I don't overly remember him getting too much stick from the fans. I genuinely can't remember if he did or if he didn't. Let's see if there's any more comments come in while we're here. Yeah, there's a couple here. Bob Duff said, what's your understanding of AFC signing players on pre-contracts and looking at summer recruitment with no permanent manager currently in place? So don't take this for gospel, but so we brought in this new guy from Coventry, this new director of football. It's been really interesting watching and listening to a few football podcasts. Particularly, I'm a big fan of the Gary Neville show, The Overlap, the one that he does with Ian Wright, Jamie Carragher, and Roy Keane. And they were talking about where it is now very common for the director of football to actually, target players and identify players. So I think that this new director of football, this new head of recruitment. I beg your pardon, head of recruitment, not director of football. So the head of recruitment, who's come in from Coventry, I think will probably be tasked with trying to find new players for who will be eventually our new manager, and our new manager might have to come in and work with these new players. He's got to come in and work with new players anyway. So it doesn't make any difference whether they're newly signed for the club or not, I don't think. But I think it will be the head of recruitment's job at this moment in time. And to be honest with you, I'd be very surprised if they're not already looking. I'd be very surprised. If a new head of recruitment comes in, obviously he'll need some time to settle into the role. I have absolutely no doubt that he'll be seeking the advice of Neil Warnock as well, particularly with Neil's experience. So I'd be very, very surprised if the ball is not already rolling in that department. Thank you for your kind comment, Jack. I will absolutely keep working away, mate. Thank you. Bob Duffer said, Ali, Porterfield was very, very defensive. He was. Because we got a lot of draws. I just remember we drew a lot of games, right? Sousa said the head of recruitment has got a very big job on his hands. Simon Roy said, I hope Neil Warnock has a say in players coming in. Yeah, look, it'd be silly not to seek his advice on new players and use his experience. Rod Cower said, what's the thoughts on Phillips? I'm hoping for good things. There were a couple of... what's that say? Hang on, let me move that up. I can't see it. There were a couple of scares during the match, but he's a forceful presence on the pitch and looks like he'll give it everything. I've got to be honest, when I predicted the team ahead of this game, I had him in the starting lineup because I felt that if we could have a little bit of physical presence in the game, particularly from him, then I think it would have put us in good stead, because I felt when he came on against Rangers, when him and Dante played together, they just added that physical presence and made us look a lot more secure. I actually thought he did okay yesterday. He got caught a couple of times on the ball, but overall, I like him. I think he's a good player, and I think he could do well for us. Eofan came back to say, I'd punt Garton, man. He came in when we played three at the back, Ruby and Jensen as the main pairing. Only keep him if we can play a right back as well, as Devlin is our only option there. Yeah, that's a very good point. There is something that I wanted to read out on I tell you what, let me grab it here. Just let me find it for you. Somebody made a very interesting point on my Facebook page this evening about the club as a whole. I just want to read it to you. Just let me see if I can find it. Where is he? Where is he? There it is. Okay. Okay. So this comment came from a chap called Enrico Tortolano. He says, lots of issues at Pittodrie need addressing before we become a decent side again. It's very tempting to keep Neil for next season as well, so he can work through them with his experience and no-nonsense approach. He'd offload the wasters and bring in some decent ones and steady the ship. I just don't think a couple of months is long enough to turn us around. The problems run deep after 3 years of awful team mismanagement and poor decisions by the board. I thought that was a really interesting comment, and I have to say, it's very difficult not to disagree with it. Okay, a couple of more comments come in. Bob Duff said, it would make sense to let Neil Warnock have some sort of say in his permanent successor, seamless handover. I completely agree with that. I could not agree more. Bob Duff has said, maybe Neil Warnock to stay on as director of football. But we have a director of football. Let's not forget. Okay, how long have we done? Right, we've done nearly half an hour, guys. So I'm going to call it a night. A lot of you have just come in after that comment about Neil Warnock to stay on as director of football. Sue's come on and says, completely agree. Simon Roy says, completely agree. Right, guys, so I'm going to call it a night. So we will be back on Tuesday for the preview show ahead against the game against Motherwell. So thank you so much for watching, as always. Thank you for your continued support. We've added a number of subscribers over the past few days, which has been brilliant. So if you like today's show, please press the old like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, it doesn't cost you anything. It just means you get alerts and notifications to know when we air shows. I'd be very grateful if you would please consider subscribing to the channel as well. So enjoy the next couple of days, and I'll see you on Tuesday night for the preview show against Motherwell. Take care. Lovely to see you. Stand free.